second. 1 second. Sorry, I planned to start on the opposite screen, not that one. So you see, it's supposed to start on this screen, and then I go to this screen. But sometimes I'm not so smart. Sometimes. Sometimes I'm big brain. Not always. No, I'm usually not big brain. How's it going today, guys? How's it going? How's it going? Actually, let me hang on. I've got to get some Spotify playing. Let's do that real quick. Let's chat real quick while I'm pulling up Spotify, you know? Gotta pull up those lo-fi beats, you know? The Lo-Fi Girl is truly clutch, allowing Twitch streamers to use the content. Truly, truly clutch. Let me tell you. You know, because we're getting affiliate soon, right? And you can't use copyrighted music if you're an affiliate, right? Because copyright reasons, you know? Kind of lame, right? It's just how it is, you know? So, I'm not going to make all the music for my channel. I'm not that good at making music. That being said, Lo-Fi Girl, as long as you credit them, I'll let you use all their stuff. Let me tell you, it is clutch. They are the best people ever. Probably ever. I don't even know who runs it. I don't care. They're the best people ever. That's all I gotta say. Sev, you didn't type the thing. By the way, it's nice to see you. But you didn't type the thing that you were supposed to type. What's going on, man? You have one job. You got one job. That's all you got. Wait, did it not tell you? Did I mess something up? Or are you messing with me? I hope I didn't mess anything up. I hope you're messing with me. I can't tell. I can't tell if you're messing with me or if I messed it up. What? Are you serious? But you did get it, right? Like whenever you went to go type in the chat, you got the thing? Please tell me you did. I think that's what you're saying by the alert. I think so. I could be very wrong. I could be very, very wrong. Hang on a second. Let me... Gosh, why am I itchy? Why am I so itchy? Let's do this real quick. What's going on here? No. There's, whenever you go to type in Twitch chat, it's supposed to pop up with a thing. So okay, right? So you go to talk in, you're watching the stream, right? And then you go to the bottom corner, and you click on send a message, and before it allows you to type anything, it's supposed to give you a message now. Yeah, it did it for me. It's chat rules. Okay, got it, and then you're allowed to start typing after you click okay, got it. Man, I really hope you're messing with me. I really hope it's working. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually not working. Yeah, but you can't put the question mark after it. That ruins it. And you typed it wrong anyways. Oh gosh, is that Spotify really loud? It's not. It's a little bit loud on my end, so I just turned it down. But hopefully it's not. Is the Spotify loud on your end? Gosh darn it. I mean, you can keep guessing. I don't think I can type it in because it won't work if I do it. I think it only works if everybody else does it. No, it's actually really funny. I promise. I promise, it's hilarious. You'll die of laughter because of how funny it is, but I can't do it. Like it won't allow me to do it. It has to be one of you guys that does it. Just vibing, having a good time. Having a real good time. Here, I'll help you out. I'll help you out here. I'll help you out real quick, you know? You know. It's going pretty good. What's up with you? It's so good. No, I just made that last night at like midnight. See, you get it? A person comes in, and before they can send a message, they have to type in what's up, right? And it gives them the rules. But then I also get to say, what's up with you, man? Get it? It's hilarious. It's like the funniest thing. It's functional, and it's hilarious. Ah, come on. You can't tell me you don't love that too. You can't tell me you don't love that too. Hey, Macho Man, what's up with you? Oh my gosh, it's so good. Isn't it so good? It's hilarious. It's like the funniest thing you've ever seen. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. So what's up with you, man? What's up with you, man? How's it going? How is it going today? Zev, you still haven't answered me either. What's up with you? Oh. Dang. I can't believe you guys don't find that hilarious. Oh my gosh, you played Punch-Out? I've never played. I mean, what is it? What's the name of the guy? He's in Punch-Out and he made it into Smash. What the heck is his name? I've never played that game, but playing as that guy in Smash is super fun. No, you don't want to play Cuphead. You think you want to play Cuphead. Little Mac. Yeah, that's his name. Dude, playing him in Smash is super fun. I promise you, you think you want to play Cuphead, you don't want to play Cuphead. Macho Man, I want to see you beat it. Deathless. I want to see you do a Deathless run. Since it's so easy. Why'd you refund it? What? That's crazy. Alright, let's get... hang on. Let me swap over so we can get some stuff going on in the background. So it's not just, oh gosh, this is actually really awkward positioning. Hang on. Let's do this. It's an awful game? What? What do you mean it's an awful game? That sounds like some crap to me. That sounds like some serious crap to me. Just because it's a hard game doesn't make it an awful game. Jeez. Why would I do that? Why would I swap the two? The gameplay is obviously the far more interesting portion of this. Obviously. You guys definitely don't come for me. You come for the gameplay. The mid unsatisfactory reason, like the mid terrible unsatisfying gameplay is what you come here for, obviously. Watching me die over and over and over again and be a stupid idiot and play games terribly, you know? That's obviously why people come here, is to watch me play games absolutely terribly. Obviously. Dude, Macho Man? Fallout 4 is a fantastic game. Let's be real here. Fallout 4 is a fantastic game. I mean, I only beat it through once. I only beat the game once, but it's a good game. I thought you were gonna talk mess? What do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah, I mean, the gameplay's a little bit subpar in Fallout 4. I thought you were gonna talk mess, then I was gonna have to get pressed. Why? You thought I was gonna talk bad on Fallout 4? Why would I do that? Why would I talk bad on Fallout 4? Fallout 4 is fantastic. I mean, like I said, the gameplay's a little bit mid, but like other than the gameplay mechanics, the story is really good. The open world is super good, like all that stuff. Maybe I need to slow down that. I set up a timer bot. I might need to slow that down. I feel like that message is popping up a little bit too much. I'm gonna be honest. Well, actually, I don't know if I ever played New Vegas. Crucify me. Crucify me. I've never played New Vegas. But Fallout 3 and Fallout 4, I only beat them, like I only went through the story, and then I didn't keep playing them after that. But the story in those two games was really freaking good. Because you cannot beat Bald Bull. Is that a Fallout 4 boss? I don't remember the Bald Bull. Oh wait, is that a Cuphead villain? I know, that's why I'm saying crucify me, because I know everybody says that Fallout 4 is the best, or I know that everybody says Fallout New Vegas is the best one, so that's why I'm saying crucify me, since I've never played it. Because everybody says New Vegas is like the best one. Oh, it's a Punch-Out villain. Okay, I understand now. Should I play Punch-Out? I've never played it before. Yeah, I've never played Punch-Out, but I mean, it's gotta be a good game. Maybe I'll try it out one of these times. Yeah, there's some not so great imbalances in Fallout 4, that's for sure. There are definitely some not so great imbalances in that game. Who is calling me? Thanks for ruining my camera. Oh gosh, wait, I actually have to take this. Hang on, I apologize. I'll be back in about 2 seconds. Okay, I apologize. Hang on, let me get this set back up and everything. Yeah, I might have to delay that bot. I might have to delay that Streamlabs bot, but I don't have the ability to really do that as of right now, if I'm being honest, because I can't really do that mid-stream. So I'll fix that bot for next stream, because I think it's popping up a little bit too much. Okay, sweet. What were we talking about? No. Not even close on either of them. So, Macho Man, how's it going today? You still never answered me, man. You just kept talking about Punch-Out. You know? I gotta know how things are going with you. Not just with Punch-Out. Factions are meh compared to New Vegas. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, I guess that would make sense. Maybe I'll have to play New Vegas at some point. Maybe. I mean, I kind of get what you're saying, right? Like, the characters in New Vegas are really good, but the story isn't. That is what you're saying, right? Right? Or am I tripping? Maybe I'm tripping. I could just be tripping. We'll see. We'll see, though. Alright, let's get this Bowie knife. Let's get this bread. Let's get this hot bread. You know? Let's get this hot bread. Okay, Bowie knife time. Sick. Let's go. Get all these points. Give me all these points. Give me all of them. I need all these points. That's what this challenge is all about, baby. Points. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. That's not what I would think. You think 3 has better characters than New Vegas? That's interesting. That's not what I usually hear. Oh, did I not? I did not turn on the power. What the heck? How did I not turn on the power? I literally walked right past it. Unbelievable. Yeah, see, that's not what I usually hear, to be honest.
Gotta get back to the mainframe.
Usually I hear New Vegas has, like, the best characters and everything. Oh, interesting, interesting. I see. Interesting. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't play New Vegas. You know? If the characters suck, maybe I just shouldn't. You know? Maybe you've convinced me not to play it. I'm just saying. You know? Not die here. That'd be bad. That'd be very bad if I died here. Although I also want to knife kill all of these zombies so that I get the maximum points. Of course there was a nuke. Are you kidding me? Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Well, I I can't ever bring myself to bomb favorite character in the game. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. Huh. Yeah, see, that's not interesting. I mean, I'll believe you. I will take your word on it. Better than my own word about it, that's for sure. Characters suck in New Vegas, just like an individual level. I don't feel so connected with any of the characters like I do. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, there's a difference between characters that you like and characters that are good. Alright, like a good character doesn't necessarily mean that you like them. So I guess that makes sense. I didn't think about it that way. Alright, let's go get Jug before I die. Or maybe this will be a double points. This could also be a double points, which would be awesome. Come on, come on, come on. Maybe? No! You suck. This game sucks. All my homies hate this game. All my homies hate this game. Oh, and there's the double points. Okay. Now watch I'll die trying to do it since I got it at the wrong time. See, now all the zombies are spawned in and they're gonna wreck me. See, I needed to get it earlier before all the zombies were here. See, now I'm just gonna die. Trying to use this double points. Okay, okay, okay. It's fine. I got to use it decently well. Like, are the characters built better? Absolutely. Are they easier to connect with in 3? Yeah, no. I completely understand you now. I completely understand you now. Has nothing on 3. Oh, interesting. Is the radio, like, something that typically people listen to in Fallout? I don't feel like I ever listened to the radio in Fallout, if I'm being honest. I mean, then again, it's been a long time, so maybe I'm just misremembering, but I feel like I always turn that stuff off. I don't know, maybe I'm the weird one for that. That's a very good possibility. There's a very good possibility that I'm the weird one out here, but that's all I'm saying. Oh, wait. What do you... Wait. Sorry, now I'm confused what you're talking about. I don't actually understand what you're talking about, apparently. Are you talking about the radio or the dog? Because, like, I know Fallout 4 has a dog that follows you around, but I thought we were talking about the radio. Sorry, maybe I'm just really confused, but I don't understand at all what you're trying to say. Ah, of course I got a nuke. Unbelievable. Lame. Lame. On the radio station in 3, free dog, like this random dude. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it is. So we are talking about the radio stations. Okay. Did XYZ? Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, that's not what I was thinking at all. I don't know. I usually just turn, like, anytime that a game has some kind of radio that's playing on in the background, I always turn it off. Like, always. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird, but I hate that background commentary going on in the background. Not a fan. Like, I just want to play the game. I'm not here for exposition dumps. Yeah, I'm not here for expedition dumps whenever I'm playing games. It could just be me, though. I could be crazy. But yeah, so Genesis 5. What do we think? What are the initial thoughts on Genesis 5? What are we thinking? Any thoughts? I didn't read it, just looked at the overview, but I like Noah. He's a cool dude. Well, Noah will be Genesis 6, so we might not actually get to that today. I mean, technically Noah's mentioned, but it's not actually the story of Noah. If that makes any sense at all. You feel me? You feel me? You feel me? I mean, essentially, but there's some cool details in it. It's definitely not one of those boring genealogies where there's nothing to it, that's for sure. No, that's fair, but I don't think it's all-encompassing by any means. right? So like there's definitely far more to it than just you know, far more to it than just genealogy, if that makes any sense. I mean, I could just read it. Would that help? What are we thinking? I could pull it up here. 1 second while I do that. Either way is fine though. Okay, sweet. Yeah, you know what? I might as well read it for people watching in the background and stuff. Here, pulling it up. Why is it doing that? Why is it doing that? It's supposed to be doing this. Odd. Oh well. So this is the written account of Adam's family line. When God created mankind, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them, and he named them mankind when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. After he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Seth lived a total of 912 years, and then he died. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Canaan. After he became the father of Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh had lived a total of 905 years, and then he died. When Kenan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. After he became the father of Mahalalel, Canaan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Canaan had lived a total of 910 years, and then he died. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. After he became the father of Jared, Mahalalel lived 830 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Mahalalel had lived a total of 895 years, and then he died. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. After he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived a total of 962 years, and then he died. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. After he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked faithfully with God 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch had lived 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more, because God took him away. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. After he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Methuselah had lived 969 years, and then he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah, and said, "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands, caused by the ground the Lord had cursed." After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. After Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right. Let me pull this back up. So, oh gosh, why is it doing that? It's not supposed to do that. All right, let me swap back over. Okay, so what's your thoughts? So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. I have 3 things from this chapter that I really want to talk about myself. But if there's anything that you want to talk about before we go any further into it, I'm fine with that as well. So like, what stands out to you initially? So what happens to Enoch? Why did it say he lived faithfully for 365 years? So that's one thing that I really want to get to. I really do want to talk about that at some point because it's fascinating. I mean, it's going to take a while to explain. So if you have any other like easier questions, hit me with them. Because there's a lot to talk about there. There's a lot to talk about with Enoch. Enoch is a fascinating guy. And he's only listed in about 3 verses of the canonical Bible, which is the crazier thing. He's only talked about for like 3 verses, and he's one of the more fascinating guys in the whole Bible. I mean, I could go straight into Enoch. What do you think? That stood out to me, and Noah did, so I've never looked at it this way. What do you mean you never looked at it this way? Like, what way specifically have you never looked at it, you mean? So like what way, I guess, are you looking at it that you've never looked at it that way before? But Noah essentially was put on earth to clean the cursed ground. Well, that was what he was named, essentially. But even though his father named him that, it's not wrong. I mean, the next chapter is going to go on to talk about how God hated the earth that he created because of how wicked people were. Like, it says that the thoughts of their hearts was evil continually. Like, every human being that was alive on the earth at that point is described as having nothing but evil in their hearts continually, which is crazy, right? So you can take that 2 ways, right? You can say, first of all, oh, God cursed the ground, right? Which is true. Right? So God did curse the ground after the fall. But also, God curses the ground a second time, right? Whenever the flood comes around. So God literally curses the ground during the fall. Essentially. But then the ground is almost, in a way, cursed again because he wipes everything out with the flood. So in a way, Noah is, you know, the one put on earth to, in a way, clean the earth, right? Even though it wasn't Noah's doing, it was God's doing. But God placed Noah there to fulfill that role. Other sons and daughters. Yeah, I mean, that's a cultural thing, right? Like, that's not how we view it today, but that's how they viewed it back then. That the firstborn male child was the important one to carry on the family lineage, right? And then all the other ones were subsequent, you know? Well, also on top of that, right, like, it's not that the parents didn't love their other children as much as the firstborn. It was that, essentially, like, they wouldn't have been able to, like, think about how many generations that is, right? They wouldn't have been able to write down every single son and daughter and their lineage. They're just tracing one line of human beings, right? And that's the line of beings that gets us to Abraham and David and Jesus and all that stuff, right? Like, if they counted every single child and then their children and then their children, the book would be 10 times bigger than the Bible, right? Just of a genealogy. Because it would be impossible to talk about every single person that was born pretty much ever, right? Like, you'd be counting every single person who was ever born for however many thousands of years, right? The point is that it's tracing the lineage of Adam to Jesus eventually, right? And it's tracing that specific line of human beings. Not to compare him to Jesus because treading on blasphemous turf. But like, he was almost Jesus in a different way. What do you mean by that? Like, Noah came to wash the world clean, and so did Jesus. Noah just did it by throwing away everything in the apartment and starting over, and Jesus came in with some blue. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't really like that analogy, to put it bluntly. Because there's nothing that Noah did that cleansed the earth. There's nothing that Noah did, right? Like, every single part of that story is God's doing, right? Noah's only faithful in following. Like, God sends the flood. God gives the instructions for the ark. God helps Noah build the ark. God gives providence for Noah and his family while they're on the ark. Like, there's nothing that Noah does in that story. Whereas Jesus, on the other hand, that's all Jesus is doing. Jesus lived a perfect life. Jesus saved us from our sins. And yes, to an extension, I know that means God as well. But everything that Jesus did was his own handiwork. Everything that Noah did was simply following God's instructions. So that's why I don't like that analogy, personally. No. Shem, Ham, and Japheth are Noah's sons. Well, obviously. But the three that you're thinking come thousands of years later. Like, literally thousands of years later. Probably about 6,000 to 8,000 years later. It's like way, way, way later, the three that you're thinking of. Yeah, but everything that Jesus did was his own work. Like, Jesus specifically, as a member of the Trinity, did those things. No, are equal in importance because they're absolutely not. Yeah. No, I understand that. I don't like the idea of saying that Noah cleansed the earth, because Noah didn't do anything. The only thing that Noah did was be faithful to God. Like, there's nothing that Noah actually did in cleansing the earth. Well, so that's the funny thing, right? Like, yes, Jesus is following God's will, but Jesus is also the one actually doing the things, right? Like, whenever we talk about the crucifixion, right, we don't say God's blood saved us. Because it wasn't God the Father who died on the cross. It was Jesus the Son who sacrificed himself on our behalf for the Father, right? Like, Jesus is the one who specifically did those actions, not God the Father. Even though he was following God the Father's will, it was still him, it was still Jesus the Son specifically who did the actions. Oh gosh, hang on a second. I saw your message, but about to die here. Oh gosh, that sucks. Like, Jesus did the miracles, not Jesus, but God let Jesus do it versus Noah didn't cause the flood directly like Jesus did the miracles. Sorry, I'm trying to work that out. I think so. I don't entirely understand that, but I think I agree with it. The wording's just a bit weird, I guess. You misread the first. Like, God did the miracles, not Jesus. But God let Jesus do it versus no. No, I still don't understand, to be honest. Like, I think I agree. Like, well, because you contradict yourself, right? So in the first sentence you say, God did the miracles, not Jesus, and then at the very end you say, Jesus did the miracles. Like, it contradicts itself. You see what I mean? Like, I think that's why I don't understand it. Because I disagree with the first statement. Jesus did do the miracles, right? Like, God wasn't doing them on Jesus's behalf. Like, Jesus did actually, like, that was Jesus's ministry to God the Father and to his will. And that was Jesus committed, like, doing the miracles, and that was Jesus the Son, God the Son, who died on the cross. That wasn't God the Father who did all that stuff, right? Like, at the baptism of Jesus Christ, you know, God the Father comes down and he says, "This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased," right? And then in the garden, and that's before, you know, Jesus is sent on his ministry duties, right? And then, you know, you're like praying in the garden, right? Like, he says, "Your will be done," right? But Jesus is still the one doing the things. If that makes sense. No, I definitely don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with that. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but I definitely don't agree with that. Because Jesus, being God, had the power to do everything that he did. Like, I don't agree that God was the one giving him the power to do things. I don't agree with that. Like, Jesus was the one actually doing all of that stuff. Because he is God, right? Like, he doesn't need God to do those things. He is God and can do those things. You see what I'm saying? Like, if we were talking about, like, that, like, that's what sets Jesus apart from every other figure in the Old and New Testament, right? Like, Paul, Elijah, Moses, like, name it, right? Like, any person in the Bible who did crazy things, right? That was because God gave them the power to do things, right? Jesus is different. He didn't need God to do those things. No, I fundamentally disagree. Like, I'm not trying to be confrontational or mean or anything, but I fundamentally disagree with that. I don't think God gave Jesus any kind of power. I think Jesus just inherently had that power, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. That's what sets Jesus apart from everyone else that God appointed, right? Because if Jesus is just another guy who God appointed and gave power, then he's no different than any of the prophets or any of the judges or anyone else, right? Like, if he's just another guy given power by God, then he's no different than the prophets, he's no different than the judges, he's no different than the kings of Israel. You see what I'm saying? Like, Jesus is distinct in that he's the one doing these things. He doesn't rely on God for anything. Which God had a baby named him Jesus and everything been... God put Jesus on earth. Jesus was given that power through God. Yeah, I mean, maybe you're just miswording it, but... So like your last sentence, for instance, right? God put Jesus on earth, and Jesus was given that power through God. I don't agree with that sentence. Deity like power by God. Jesus did these things at his own hands because God. No. I completely understand what you're saying. I completely disagree. Jesus has that power because he is God. Right? So let me take that sentence right here. Let me pause this real quick. So let me replace Jesus in what you said with anybody else, right? Moses was given deity-like power by God. Moses did these things at his own hand. God created him to be that. No. That's not like reading the first chapter of John, right? God didn't create Jesus. It's very clear reading 1 John, Jesus was always there from the beginning. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, right? Like that's what John 1 starts off with, right? Jesus was the Word of God incarnate. Jesus was with God from the beginning. Jesus was not created by God. He's not some subordinate being to God. He is God. Like, you can't separate Jesus from God and say that he's something else, like just some created thing. You can't say that Jesus was created by God and given power. It's just not, that's not how that works. Like John 1 says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. The vessel he is. But there's not a distinction, right? At least there shouldn't be. Like, there shouldn't be a distinction between spiritual Jesus and earthly Jesus. It's just Jesus. Like 100% man, 100% God. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just still misunderstanding, but yeah, see, like that's what I'm trying to avoid, right? Like, in theology, you learn that one of the very first heresies that was ever, I think it's called the Arian heresy, and it's essentially that Jesus was this created thing by God, right? And that he has power, but he was created later, and he's not on the same level. And like the church got rid of that very early on, like still in the time of, I think Paul was still alive during that time, right? It's not something that we really talk about nowadays, but it was a big topic back then. There was a lot of people who had this view of Jesus as a created being. And a lot of people think that's why John puts that at the start of his gospel, right? Because the Gospel of John was written a lot later on than the other Gospels. It was written around 90 AD. And a lot of people think that's why John put that in his Gospel, is because a lot of people were confusing Jesus as something other than God. So that's why John clarified his divinity so heavily. No, yeah, I completely understand that. I don't, like, to me, if you're just saying that Jesus was somebody who was created by God and given power by God, I don't see how that makes him any different than anybody else, right? Like that's how I would view somebody like Elijah, right? Like Elijah was created by God, given power by God to do work, like God's work on earth, right? And what sets Jesus apart is that he is God. He doesn't derive power from God. He just simply is God, right? So then that goes back to Noah, right? Like what we were talking about with Noah, in that I don't really like to attribute cleansing the earth to Noah, right? Because it was God's plan, it was God's action, it was God commanding. Because Noah could have died on the cross to save us, Jesus are one and the same, but they are. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, Jesus is very distinctly different than everybody else who came before him, right? And that's one of the coolest features of the Bible, right? Is that contrary to all of the other literature at the time, the people of the Bible are imperfect and make bad decisions, and they don't follow God's will all the time, and they screw up and all this stuff, right? And it's like, the entire time you're reading the Bible, you're wondering, like, who's the hero here? Like, all of these guys kind of suck. Like, all of these guys, you know, they have these cool moments, but, you know, Abraham cheats on his wife, and Jacob, you know, basically cheats on his first wife too, and Samson kills a bunch of people and disobeys God's will, and like even the two big ones, right? Moses and Elijah, the two that everybody looked up to, even they mess up, right? And it's like, oh well, who's the good guy in this book, right? And then you get to Jesus, and he breaks the mold of everybody else. You know, he lives a perfect life, and he never messes up, and you read it and you're like, oh, this is it. This is the guy that we've been waiting for this whole time, right? Because he's different. And like that's expressed from the beginning of the Gospels, right? Whenever John says, you know, there's somebody coming after me whose shoe I'm not even worthy enough to untie, right? And it's like, oh wow, the guy's actually coming. The guy that we've been looking forward to this whole narrative, he's finally coming, you know? Gosh, this gun is so bad. It's just hard to advocate stances like that to new believers, because there's a what if in the Bible for me that unravels everything, and it's solely faith that makes me ignore that what if in the back of my head. I mean, I guess. I mean, to me I don't feel like, and maybe this is just my own experience, right? But to me, I feel like I have the opposite feeling, right? Like, to me, it strengthens my faith to think of the fact that Jesus is this perfect 100% man, 100% God figure, right? Like, the only one that could properly atone for our sins, the only one who could do all of these super powerful things, the only one who can save me of my sins is God himself incarnate, come to save me, right? It's not just another guy that God appointed. It's not just some, like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, I feel like that strengthens my faith, seeing it in that way, seeing it in that light. And maybe that's just my own experience, but that's personally how I see it, I guess. So, 1, 2, wait. 5. Well, part of me is like, what if it's all this big elaborate conspiracy that Mary cheated and covered up, her and Joseph made this big elaborate cover-up. I don't believe that, but my faith in Jesus and my faith in God is what does that. See, I don't know. Like, to me, I can't have those doubts, right? Like, if Jesus was truly just some guy, you know, like, let's say it was all an elaborate conspiracy, right? And let's say that Mary cheated on Joseph and Jesus is just some child, right? And it's a whole made-up story. Then why would all of these people die for him, right? Like, you know, there's like all of his disciples died for him, right? Oh, hey, how's it going? But I guess, oh, wait. There we go. I had my mic muted. Well, the new setup, I have to use one microphone to talk to you guys, and I have to use the good microphone for the stream, so I kind of forgot that's how the new setup worked. No, I can talk to both at the same time, but I'm using a different microphone to talk to both. I use the bad microphone to talk to you guys. Paul. Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Yeah, no sweat. Don't worry about it. I mean, at least you guys showed up. Can you hear them? You still can't hear them? Hang on. I might have to go in the settings and mess with some stuff. I guess they can. I mean, I am using a different setup now. I'm using a different setup now because of the microphone. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Where would that even be at in here? Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to be looking for it for a little bit. Wait, volume and audio output. Additional options, party chat output, headset, and speakers. That should fix it, I think. At least you guys should be able to hear them now. Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying. Zev. I'm just, like, to me, right, you know, like, people don't just die for a conspiracy, right? Like, if somebody's in on a conspiracy, they can say and do all these crazy things while they live, but they don't die for it. And you certainly don't see an entire group of people dying for it, unless if they truly believe in it, right? Unless if they truly believe in what they're saying, they don't just up and die for it. And every single one of them did. Every single one of the original ones did, except for John. Were killed because of what they believed in. Yeah, no, exactly. Like those deaths are recorded. Like, we have the Roman records of them crucifying these people, right? And like, these people wouldn't just die if they didn't. They wouldn't have just gave up. They wouldn't have all unanimously given up their lives if they didn't truly believe in what they had seen happen before them. So are you guys working on the robot tonight? Nice. Really? That seems weird. I guess. That really didn't fix it? Why would that not have fixed it? You can hear the game, right? Right? Or can you not hear anything? Like, can you hear the game at the very least? Yeah, you hear the game. Why? You should be. In the settings, headset, party chat output is coming through headset and speakers. Discord, but I'm using Discord on Xbox. Well, because I have to now. Because of this mic setup, I can't use Discord on my PC anymore. So yeah. Okay. I mean, if that answers all that, we can go back to, what was it? So we talked about Noah. We could talk about Xbox, or, Enoch. No, you can't mess with Discord. This is it. I mean, maybe it's in here. I doubt it. Yeah. I don't think it's in there. Noise suppression? That wouldn't do it. I mean, I could do a janky solution on the side. I could definitely do a janky solution. Hang on, let me do a janky solution. Okay, well, they're not talking right now, but yeah, they're not currently talking, but this should theoretically work. I'm trying really hard to learn all this stuff. Oh no, don't apologize. I mean, I do this for a living, so this is, I have to know this stuff. A lot of people don't really talk about this stuff on a usual basis, that's for sure. But yeah, so for Enoch, right? So you were talking about Enoch. So here's the crazy thing about Enoch. Enoch is one of two people in the Bible who don't die. Like, ever. Crazy, right? Crazy? So here's the deal, right? No, right? Okay, so you know about the story of Elijah, right? So Elijah is out walking with Elisha, and as they're out walking, this fiery chariot appears, and God just takes him up to heaven so he doesn't die, right? Enoch is the exact same way. So, let me go back to the chapter so I can read the exact verse again. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. He's the only person in this genealogy that doesn't die. Right? It just says that he walked with God and God took him away. Essentially, so it's essentially the exact same story as Elijah, right? So Elijah goes out and walks, and then he's just taken up by God in a fiery chariot, right? And it's the exact same way with Enoch. And Enoch just walked with God, and he was just taken. So he's one of only two people in the whole Bible that never died. God just took them up to heaven with him. Isn't that super cool? And this guy Enoch, gets a total of like 3 verses in the entire Bible. Is that not crazy? This dude was apparently so faithful to God. This dude was apparently so faithful to God during his time on Earth for 365 years that God was like, you know what? You don't have to die. I want you to come back with me now. And just took him. Just took him to heaven. Is that not super crazy? Oh yeah, exactly. And so that's another thing, right? What is it? What was I gonna say? So there's an entire there's a book called Enoch, right? And it's not in the Bible. It's not a canonical book. Like, the church fathers, for whatever reason, looked at it and said it's not a canonical book, but it could be useful for teaching, right? So that's why it became an epigraphal book, right? So the epigraphal books are words that are not canonical word of God, but they can be useful for some kind of other kind of teaching outside of the Bible, right? So, like, another example of this would be 1st and 2nd Maccabees. The 1st and 2nd Maccabees are books that talk about the Jewish history between the Old Testament and the New Testament, right? And they're not canonical because they don't talk about God in their histories, right? And the church fathers looked at that and they said, well, it's not really about the God, so let's not include it. The same thing with Enoch, right? They just considered it not to be the word of God, but it was still useful for other things. Well, luckily for you, it's only ever happened to 2 people who ever lived, so I wouldn't be worried about it happening to you. I definitely would not be worried about it happening to you. But, what was I saying? Oh, but none of that stuff will matter when you're in heaven with God. Everything that happens here won't matter when you're there, you know? So why worry about it? Well, if he had reason for you to stay on Earth, he'd keep you there. If he doesn't have reason to keep you on Earth, then you wouldn't be here, right? And it's clear that for some reason, Enoch and Elijah had fulfilled their purpose in life, and God said, you've done your job, you know? There's nothing else for you to do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been, you know, taken up. Yeah, exactly. So, like, if God, you know, if they had fulfilled their purpose on Earth, right, you know, that's it. Oh gosh, I just realized. Hang on a second. I don't think it's coming through. Oh, wait. Interesting. Huh. I know Stephen Furtick is the guy Elevation Worship North Carolina, right? Right? I think that's him. I could be wrong about that. There's a dog coming somewhere. Where's it at? Get rid of those suckers. Those suckers gotta go. Those suckers gotta go. There we go. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. He said something about like the things he wanted to do that weren't happening, and he said someone told, if God's done with you, you can't do anything about that, let it go. Well, I mean, yeah, I think that goes for everything, right? Like, that's not, like, for everything you do in life, right? Like, that takes discernment on whether it's what God wants for you, right? Like, it's not just things that I think God wants me to be doing. So, like, yes, on the one hand, you know, I can maybe think that God wants me to do one thing, but it's not what he wants me to do at all. And that's one thing to take into account. But there's also, you know, really anything with your life, right? Like, should I marry this person? Should I pick up this job? Should I continue living where I'm living at now? Should I stay at this church? Right? Like, all those things are big questions that you pray and you discern about them and figure out what the best thing to do is. I was like, I hate this advice, God wouldn't be done, but then I thought more about, well, yeah, I mean, like, so we talked about this in, I forget what class. I think it was Care of Persons. And essentially, yeah, it was Care of Persons, because we were talking about, like, burnout, right? Because burnout is something that pastors experience more than a lot of other professions, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? So, with pastors, there's, well, one reason is essentially that pastors' work is never done, right? Like, whenever you are done at work for a day, you're not really truly done. Like, you never really stop. Like, if something comes up, you have to respond to it, right? And you're constantly trying to learn and to discern God's judgment and all those things, right? And there's also this sense of grief in, like, not being able to help everybody out, because you have to help people, but you can't help everybody, and that leads to burnout. And then there's the sense of doing the same things week by week, helping the same people, writing the same types of sermons, stuff like that, leads to burnout. And in Care of Persons, we talked about how one of the things that pastors need to realize is to discern when they are doing either A, too much, or B, things that God doesn't even really want them to be doing, right? So, like, I can think in my mind that writing 10 sermons a week and pastoring at 8 different churches is God's will for me, because it's what I need to be doing, right? But that's just unrealistic. Like, nobody can do that. Like, even if they worked 24-hour days every single day, every single week, there's no way you could write 10 sermons a week, pastor 8 churches, take care of hundreds of people every single week. It's just not possible, right? And, like, we can tend to go through our lives and think, this is what God wants me to be doing. I need to be doing this because it's what God wants me to be doing. And it could be something good that you're doing. It could be something really good that you're doing, but it's not something God wants you to be doing. Just because it's something that is good doesn't mean it's something that God wants you to be doing right here and right now, right? So here's a great example from the Bible, right? King David wanted to build a temple to God. He looked at the tabernacle and he said, why is God living in a tent while I live in this luxurious palace, right? And he prayed to God, and God told him, I don't want you to do that. That's not in my will for you to build the temple. That's something I'm going to have your son do, because it's not the right time. Building the temple to God would have been an incredible thing to see, and it would have been great, and you could have every reason to argue that it's what God wants for you to do, right? But God said it wasn't what he wanted him to do. You know, even though it was a good thing to build the temple, it wasn't what God wanted him to be doing right then and right there. And we can do the same thing. We can think, oh, this good thing that I'm doing it for God because he wants me to do it, when in reality, it's not what God wants you to be doing at all. Because I feel like I'm supposed to be where I am, but obviously I've served my purpose here. Well, so, okay, let me clarify then, right? Do you think you've served your purpose here? Or has God been telling you that you've served your purpose there? Right? Like, that's different. And now I believe I wasn't pulled here to do anything but to find him. I know without a doubt what I'm supposed to do, and I've seen things I'm supposed to work on building up. At the same time, I want to be here, be home, so I'm struggling. So, yeah, maybe. So, if you 100% feel like that's where you're supposed to be going, then I'm sure that's where God will have you go. But I'd also add to that, right? Just because God's called you to do it, is he calling you to go there right now? Is he calling you to go there right now? Or has he told you that you are going to be called there, but it's not your time yet? You see what I'm saying? Oh gosh, this gun is so much worse. Yeah, I'm gonna trade this sucker out. Give me another gun. That's even worse. Oh my gosh, but I gotta take it. Unbelievable. Now I'm stuck here with these trash guns. It's all for the challenge. It's all for the challenge. Oh, there's double points though. I'll take that. I will take that. Actually, let me check something here real quick. I think I got messages. Oh wait, Kirsten is Kirsten and Dietrich, are you still here? Oh, they're trying to talk, but I can't hear them. Can you guys? Wait. Seb, can you hear them? Because now I can't hear them. Yeah, for some reason now I can't hear them, but I wonder if you can. Oh, you can't either. Okay, so now neither of us can hear them. What's going on here? Even the janky setup's not working. I figured at least the janky setup would work. Was deep in oh, no worries, dude. No worries, dude. We still got a lot to talk about with Genesis 5. we still got a ton to talk about in Genesis 5. Like, I've seen me at the UA campus. Yeah, no, sorry, I was trying to figure out the Kirsten thing. I'm reading it now. Location of the church, and I prayed during service to get a sign. After that volunteer, convo he found. Yeah, no, I think I'd just say the exact same thing, right? Like, maybe God, like, so it seems that you feel God has 100% called you to this place. Oh, hey. We can't really talk right now because he's making a lot of... Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I guess just message me whenever, the noises are less, and I will try to fix the audio, because honestly, I don't really know what the problem is right now, other than restarting Discord. I'm sorry, I don't really know what's going on with it. I probably should have tested. I tested out all the audio except for Discord. Discord was the one audio solution that I didn't audio test before the stream, and now it's biting me in the butt. But yeah, no, I'd say the exact same thing, right? I'd say maybe God's called you there, but maybe he hasn't called you there right now. And that's another piece of discernment, right? Well, no, I'm not using Discord on Xbox anymore. That's the thing. I was using Discord on Xbox, and I could hear them. Right? But you guys couldn't. So for my janky solution, I swapped over to using Discord on my PC so that you guys could hear them, because I know you guys can hear them on Discord on PC. That being said, for some reason, it's still not working even though I'm using Discord on PC. So I don't honestly know what the problem is, and I guess I need to figure that out. But yeah, Cole, we got plenty more to talk about. Would I feel pulled that strongly if I wasn't supposed to stop taking those... Would I feel pulled that strongly if I wasn't supposed to stop taking those steps? If I wasn't supposed to start taking those steps? No. Sorry, I'm still working with that too. If God is pulling you in that direction, then you should start looking into it. If I'm gonna put it bluntly, if you feel God is pulling you in that direction, there should be nothing stopping you into looking into it. I'm not saying that's something that you have to be doing right now, but I'm saying if you are feeling called in that direction, then it is something you should be talking and praying about. No doubt in my mind. Like, no question to me. Yeah, no question to me. Man, these guns suck. I can't believe I'm stuck with these ones for around here, so... Actually, let's just trade out the ballistic knife, right? Actually, no, let's trade out the sniper. Sniper's the least useful one out of here out of all three of these. Oh my gosh, and I got the China Lake to replace it? Oh my gosh. This is terrible. This is a crime. This is a crime. Gotcha, I'm researching it and having conversations with mentors, and I'm looking at relocating when my lease ends. Yeah, no, I mean, I understand that. I mean, I've had the exact same thing, right? So, I got called to go to New York for college, right? And I hated that. I was like, I don't know anybody in New York, right? I don't know a single person in New York. I don't want to go there. Why would I leave this place behind that I'm perfectly happy with? Why would I leave all my family and friends behind to go to New York? But it was very clear that God was calling me to go there for schooling, right? So that's what I did. I knew exactly where I was supposed to go, and I did it. And he blessed me for it. You know, I got there, and he blessed me with friends, and a great education, and amazing memories, and all that stuff, right? It wasn't what I wanted to do, but because I listened, and I did what God asked of me, he blessed me, and he gave me all of these things that I could have never imagined I would have gotten if I hadn't have followed him. And like I was at home. Exactly, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, because if you follow God, right? If you follow what it is that he's telling you to do, he's going to give you joy. He's going to give you comfort. He's going to give you all of these things during that transitional time that you need to do things, right? Oh my gosh, I just realized I got sidetracked. We were talking about Enoch. So Enoch, right? He's only there for 3 verses, right? So Cole, let me refresh you, right? So Genesis 5, Cole and anybody else who's here who's just tuning in, right? Genesis 5 is a genealogy that takes us from Adam to Noah, right? Which doesn't sound super interesting. But there's some pieces in here that are fascinating, right? So right here, it talks about Enoch. He was 65 years old when he gave birth to Methuselah. He became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked faithfully with God for 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived a total of 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with God, then he was no more because God took him away. He is in the Bible. Okay, it's 4 verses. Enoch is in the Bible for a total of 4 verses, and he has one of the most fascinating stories because he doesn't die. Everybody else in this genealogy and in any other genealogy tells how long they lived and then they died. Enoch didn't die. He walked faithfully with God because God took him away. He was just like Elijah, right? So Enoch was faithful to God, and God just up and took him. Crazy. And Enoch has an entire book dedicated to him, which is not in the Bible. It's an apocryphal book, which is what I was talking about earlier, right? So essentially, there's books that didn't make it into the Bible as the Word of God, right? Because God didn't want them to be in there. But there's books that are inspired and helpful for teaching and for learning, right? And like, so for example, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, right? Like those are the go-to to talk about the Apocrypha. And the reason for that is because, so 1st and 2nd Maccabees aren't canonical books, but they're really, really helpful for theology and biblical studies because they give us the history of the Jewish people between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The reason that they didn't make it into the canonical Word of God is because they didn't talk about God at all. So the Church Fathers looked at it and they said, this isn't the Word of God because God's not even mentioned in it, right? But the Book of Enoch falls into that category. It's a book that it's not in the Bible, but it has a lot of really useful stuff for us to know about, right? And it tells us this story of Enoch, right? And how he meets the Nephilim, which is something we're going to talk about next chapter, because the Nephilim are mentioned in chapter 6, which are essentially this race of crazy half-demon, half-human people, right? It's a crazy thing, right? And it's where we find out about a lot of the angels. Like we find out about Gabriel and Michael and a lot of the other archangels too through that book, right? So just some crazy stuff all around in that book. But Enoch's a crazy dude, right? Enoch's crazy. Cole, you know about the Nephilim, right? I think you know about the Nephilim. But yeah, we're going to talk a lot more about the Nephilim for next chapter, because they're a fascinating thing, and, oh my gosh, how did I get that again? The Nephilim, Evan's going to come with questions and thoughts about the Nephilim, because he knows more about them than I do. I mean, I know a little bit about them, but this man studies them hardcore. What do you mean mention spouses? Oh, dude, Cole, you need to show up whenever we talk about Genesis 6 next week, you need to show up for that then. You're gonna love the conversation of them. Oh my gosh. Cole, you're gonna love the conversation about the Nephilim. They're essentially just they're essentially just creatures that are like half human, half demon, essentially. Crazy, it's like crazy stuff. Absolutely nutty stuff to talk about. Well, yeah, but what do you mean Numbers in Genesis? I don't know what you mean by that. Like, I know what a spouse is, but I don't understand your comment about them. Like, what do you mean mention spouses? Because Genesis certainly mentions spouse, like, talks about Sarah and Hagar and Rachel and Leah and all those people. Like, they have almost as prominent stories as Abraham and Jacob in them, right? Oh, no, that's what I'm saying, right? Like, Genesis and Numbers absolutely talk about people's spouses, right? Oh, well, I mean, none of the genealogies talk about women. Well, okay, I take that back. That's not entirely true. Some genealogies mention women, but whenever they mention the, like, so the anytime that there's a genealogy, it only mentions one parent. It doesn't mention both parents. Sometimes it mentions the wife. Most of the times it mentions the husband, right? Like 90% of the time it mentions the husband. But there are times that it mentions the wife in the genealogy, but it's only ever one. I don't know if there's any genealogies that mention both the husband and the wife. Oh, that's... I don't know if I like that translation. So Genesis 6:4. Let me read them to you. Let me read it to you, right? So this is how Genesis 6 begins. When human beings began to increase in numbers on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them that they chose. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Well, yes, but no. So, oh gosh, well, I gotta think of how to say this properly. So, every society was a patriarchal society for thousands of years, right? Which doesn't mean that the women were oppressed. It just simply means that the identity of the family was centered around the oldest male figurehead, right? So, yes, that is how cultures functioned back then. Like, if you asked a person who was born back then, they would be able to trace their own lineage backwards because they had really good memories back then, and they would memorize this kind of stuff. They would memorize their lineage back as far as they could, right? And it was always on the male side. That being said, a lot of the genealogies in the Bible go countercultural to that by also including women in their genealogies. Not a lot. There's not a lot of women that are mentioned in the genealogies, but that being said, the fact that they mention any women in the genealogies is completely countercultural to how they thought back then. So, honestly, I'm just gonna be blunt. I have absolutely zero understanding as to what Neanderthals are, except for that they're something. Like, I understand what a Neanderthal is. That's it. So I can't make any comments. Like, I genuinely have no concept of like... Well, yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand the basic concept, but that's it. I don't understand anything else about it other than that tenet you said right there, right? Like, it's a completely foreign concept to me. Not something that I've studied in the slightest. So, I mean, I'd love to make more comments on it. It's just, it's not my, you know, territory of expertise, if that makes sense. Evan might have more information on that next week if he's able to make it. Yeah, like, that's kind of part of the reason why I haven't cared to study them at all, because, I mean, well, first of all, I just haven't cared to in general, but, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. I just don't know. I don't know where anybody is. No, he can't be. The reason I say that is because he lives about 2 hours away from her, and they both have school. So the only time that they can ever see each other is on weekends. So I know that that's not the case, at least. Dietrich has a good excuse. Dietrich has the excuse because he's doing a robotics competition this weekend, and he's back home working on the robot to have it up and ready for the weekend. So he's got a good excuse. Yeah, no, I'm glad he's here too. Like he's actually doing stuff. Like Dietrich has a very serious excuse to Dietrich has a very serious excuse to not be here at all, right? He's got a very serious robotics competition he's trying to win this weekend, and he showed up, which I give serious props to him for that. He did not have to do that. I mean, given he's not really talking because, you know, he's making loud noises and he doesn't want to distract you guys, but he's here listening and stuff, so that means a lot. Okay, yeah, Cole, if you want to show back up, we'll still be talking Genesis 5 for a while. So if you want to show back up after that to keep talking, we'd gladly keep going. But yeah, Evan knows a lot more about the Nephilim than I do, so he can talk more on that hopefully next week. So here's another thing that I want to talk about in Genesis 5, right? And they kind of go hand in hand. So first of all, let's talk about Methuselah. Methuselah, according to the Bible, is the oldest man who ever lived. Right? So that's where we get that roast at. Like, you know, you've ever called an old guy Methuselah or heard of an old guy being called Methuselah. It's because Methuselah is the oldest guy who ever lived according to the Bible, right? 969 years old. Right? Crazy. So here's the thing, right? If you believe, like, if you take that, right, and you say Methuselah was 969 years old, and if you believe that the Earth is 10,000 years old, because there's a lot of creationists out there who believe the Earth is 10,000 years old, then Methuselah lived to see a tenth of the entire history of humankind. Does that not blow your mind? Like, if you're a creationist, and you believe that the Earth is 10,000 years old, if you're a creationist and you believe the Earth is 10,000 years old, and Methuselah was 969 years old, Methuselah lived to see a tenth of the entirety of humankind. So that's a good question, right, Zev? So here's the thing. We actually talked about this in Old Testament last semester. So according, oh, let's not die here. So according to the account in the according to the flood account, right? The Nephilim are wiped out with the flood. But there's later records in the Bible that mention the Nephilim. Right? So what's going on there, right? What's going on there? Actually, you know what? Before we start talking about this, I'm going to pause the game real quick. I'm going to pull up my notes. Because I took notes on this last semester, and I might be able to pull those up for this, because they might remind me of some stuff that I might be forgetting. Oh gosh, where are they going to be at, though? I might not actually remember where those notes are. I took a lot of notes in that class. I took a lot of notes in this class, so I might not actually I might not be able to find it super easily. So anyways, so back to Methuselah, right? Right? Okay, so that's interesting, Zev, right? I guess, okay, actually, you know what? Let's talk about that first before I go to the Nephilim. Or for Methuselah, right? So, here's the thing. We talked about this in the very first video we did. We did it in the Genesis 1 Bible study with the boys, right? Because there's so many different theories as to how the earth was created, right? So you have the essentially young earth debate, which is that God literally created the earth in 6 days, and that the earth is 10,000 years old. And here's the reasoning for that belief, right? It's not that it's without merit. The reason that those people believe the earth is 10,000 years old is because the Bible has record of every genealogy from Adam up until Jesus, right? So, if you think about it, we know when Jesus lived. And those genealogies tell us who lived and when they had a child, right? So theoretically, right, you could take every single one of those people and add up the ages of when they had their first child, and you could get a date for whenever Adam was born, which is about 10,000 years ago. Right? So it's not that it's without merit, because if you take it literally, if you take the Bible and every number that it tells you literally, then the earth is 10,000 years old. If you take every number that it has at face value and you take it literally, then the earth is 10,000 years old. Right? And I'm not saying that's what I do, right? If you ask me, I'm fairly indifferent on the issue. To me, right, like in my own personal belief, right, like if you want to know where I land on this issue, if I'm being honest, I really don't care, right? To me, the earth could be 10,000 years old, or the earth could be 18 billion years old. Honestly, I don't care. Because here's the thing. That's not the point. The point of creation is that God created everything, right? The point is that God is the creator of earth. The point is that he created us. The point is that he created all things good, and then he created all things to take place in the way that they did, right? The point is that he's the perfect creator who made everything to be how it is, right? So to me, it doesn't matter if the earth is 10,000 years old. It doesn't matter if it's 7 billion years old. It doesn't matter if it was created in 6 days. It doesn't matter to me if it was created over billions of years. To me, all that matters is the premise that God created all, right? But that's to say, the people who believe that the earth is 10,000 years old, you know, they have merit. Because like I said, if you take every genealogy from Adam to Jesus, and you add them up from the time that they were born to the time that they had their next child, you get about 10,000 years, right? On the other end of the spectrum, right, you have the idea that cavemen people didn't know how to keep track of time properly. You have the argument that, you know, they didn't understand science like we do today, right? You have the argument that the creation story is a mythical story, that is meant to teach people that God is creator, not to tell a literal story of how it was created. So think of it in like this, the way that parables are written, right? The parables that Jesus tells aren't literal. They're stories that are meant to provide some kind of truth, right? And there's the argument that the creation account is a parable that doesn't tell the literal story of how the world was created, but points out the fact that God did create things, right? Because, I mean, think about it, right? If you asked a modern day person how the earth was created, they would want a more scientific answer to that. But if you ask a caveman, right, and if God told a caveman about planets and about atoms and about the Big Bang, they wouldn't understand it, right? Like, you have to take into account the fact that the Bible was not written to us. It was written to people a very long time ago. And it was meant for them to understand. And if you went in there and started talking about all this science mumbo-jumbo, a person back then wouldn't have understood it. Oh my gosh. I understand what their stance is, and I don't negate their logic. What I do believe, though, is that the stance puts science at odds with creation, and personally, I believe they're one and the same. So here's another thing, right? There's a third belief. There's a third belief that stands in the middle. Well, technically, there's a lot of beliefs about creation. Technically, there's a lot of different beliefs about creation. But here's one that falls in the middle, right? And we talked about this one as well during the creation stream. Essentially, the idea is, whenever God created Adam in the garden, God did not create Adam old. He didn't create him young. Whenever God created Adam, he created him as an adult. He didn't create him as a baby and then watch him grow up. He created him as an adult. So the argument is that the earth is 10,000 years old. It was let me rephrase that. The earth was created 10,000 years ago, but in reality, it's actually it was created old, right? You see what I'm saying? Like, God created Adam as to be an adult. Even though Adam hadn't lived 30 years, he was created as an adult, right? I've always pictured him created as adult, but not like as hard and fast stance. No, exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? So Adam was created an adult, and this story says the same thing, right? Like, the Earth was created 10,000 years ago, but it was created old. Sorry, I just hit the mic. It was created old, just like Adam was. So that's why it appears old to us, is because God created it old, right? Which is another really interesting theory to think about, right? Like, just as God created Adam an adult, God created the earth old. I mean, it's definitely an interesting way of thinking about it, right? Like, whether you believe it or not, which I'm not saying I do, I'm just saying it's an interesting way of thinking about how God might have created the earth. And like I said, I'm fairly indifferent about it, right? So, like, the dinosaurs never existed, but God created proof of them, potentially. So that's the thing, right? So then that's a problem with that theory. And there's problems with every theory, right? So let me pose you problems with all three of the theories we just went through, right? So the problem with that theory that I was just talking about is exactly what you said, right? Why would God create things that were already dead? Why would he create fossils of things that were dead, right? The problem with the Earth being 7 billion years old and those fossils having existed before the fall, right? So here's the problem with that theory. If these fossils are dated to be millions of years old, then how does that account for the Garden of Eden? Right? Think about it. If death didn't exist until the fall, then how do we have fossils that are millions of years old? So that's a problem with the old Earth theory, right? The problem with the old Earth theory is that how did death exist? And that's the argument that the creationists use. Like, if you ask somebody who is a creationist, they'll tell you that death couldn't exist before the fall. And it's a legitimate argument, right? That's a very legitimate argument. But then there's the problem with the young Earth theory. There's the problem with the idea that the Earth is 10,000 years old. The problem with that is because we can date things that are older than 10,000 years. So it's interesting, right? Like, there's a problem. There's a problem with all of the theories. So it's interesting to think about, right? There's upsides and there's downsides to thinking each one. Ooh. I mean, I appreciate that, man. I would love to know. I mean, I'll know too one day. I will know too one day, so I'm in no rush. I'm in no rush. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa! Who says you're good enough to speak with Peter? Who says I'm good enough to speak with Peter when I go to heaven? You know? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? Is Peter Peter? Oh, I don't want to pick that up. Wait, Peter was never a tax collector. Peter was a fisherman. Right? Because Peter was a fisherman whenever Jesus called him, and then, who am I thinking of? Tax collector. I mean, I don't think there were any disciples that were tax collectors. I mean, there was the tax collector that Jesus ate with. I don't think there's any tax collector apostles. If I'm being honest. Because there's the story of the tax collector, but he wasn't an apostle. He was just somebody that Jesus ate with. Yeah, exactly. He was a tax collector and then he converted, but he wasn't an apostle. Like, Jesus, like, he... what was his name? Zacchaeus, right? I think was his name. He cheated a bunch of people, he climbed up a tree, and then... Or maybe I'm combining stories here, right? But the guy who was the tax collector that Jesus ate with, who cheated a bunch of people, and then gave back their money, he wasn't like... Thinking of... Yeah, so there was the one person that cheated a bunch of people, and he met Jesus, and Jesus talked with him, and then at the end of it, he said, everybody that I've cheated, I will give back double what I took from them, right? That guy wasn't a disciple, that guy wasn't an apostle then. That guy was only present in that story, and then we never heard from him again. Yeah, I don't think there were any tax collectors who were disciples. Dang, dude, I wish more people, like, all the zombies people aren't here tonight to watch this. I'm cruising through this challenge tonight, like, super easily, and the people aren't even here to watch it who are the zombies people. I'm not even, like, trying, I mean, I am kind of trying to do the challenge, but I'm more talking about the Bible study stuff, so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really trying to think if there's anybody else, but honestly, I can't think of anyone else. That's the only tax collector that I can think of. Is the one who cheated the people and Jesus converted. think of any other ones at least. Where's the box going? Oh, it's back over there again. Okay. What were we talking about? We keep getting off track. Matthew. Oh, well, if Matthew was a tax collector... Wait, sorry, what was the original point? Why were we talking about him again? I don't remember, honestly. I honestly don't remember why we were talking about Matthew. I thought Matthew was Peter. Wait, so what's special about Matthew? I mean, other than the fact that he wrote the Gospel of Matthew. I don't think there's any stories about Matthew other than the fact that he was an apostle and that he wrote the Gospel, right? I don't think there's anything else important about him. Or am I just missing something, like, really important? I thought that Peter at the gate... Wait, Matthew at the gates? What do you mean by Matthew at the gates? Oh gosh, Zev, you're really confusing me, I'm sorry. You're really confusing me. You're messing with my brain, man. You're messing with my brain. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Beautiful. It is important. You know how Peter is depicted at the pearly gates? I thought Peter was Matthew, the tax... Wait, is Peter depicted at the gates? Is he? Culturally, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. He is depicted culturally as the one at the gates. That is fair. Because I was thinking what the Bible was saying. Yeah. Well, you know, there's a lot of like stuff in church tradition that is not necessarily in the Bible, but we practice it, right? And it's not that that's wrong, right? It's just that it's stuff that is extra biblical, right? Stuff that goes along with what the Bible says that isn't actually stated in the Bible. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Gosh, what were we talking about? We keep getting... Zev, we keep getting off track, man. We're supposed to be talking about Genesis 5 here. We're supposed to be talking about Genesis 5, and we keep getting off track. Oh, gosh. What are we talking about? Creationist theories. Yeah. I mean... I don't know if there's too much else to say about those, to be honest. But so here's the other thing, right? So we were talking about that. The question is, did people truly live that long back then? Right? So did people actually live to be 600, 700, 800, 900 years old back then? Was that really a thing? It's interesting to talk about, isn't it? Right? Isn't that really interesting? That's the question. Is that a thing? Is that how long people actually aged back then? Or is there something that we're missing there? Nice. I like that. Hang on, let me actually look up something real quick here. I might not have written anything down about the old ages from Old Testament, actually. Anyways, I know a lot about them that isn't from Old Testament, so I can still talk about it regardless. Well, yeah, right? But that being said, we can still speculate about it, right? Like, just because we'll never know doesn't mean it's not productive for us to work these things out, right? Like, if we didn't work these things out, we wouldn't learn anything. It's the same way with any profession, right? Like, you have to talk about things, you have to work things out, and then that's how things are figured out over time, right? Like, even if there's some things that we will never figure out, it's still better to talk about them and maybe figure out an actual solution than to not talk about them at all, right? Because there's like some really interesting ideas with that, right? So for instance, here's one theory, and that's why I'm not gonna argue with the creationists, because we both have valid backings to our beliefs. A debate is one thing, but an argument is another. Yeah, exactly. Like, these are helpful things to debate. These are very helpful things to debate. Talking about these things, I think it brings us closer to each other. I think it makes us more knowledgeable. I think it brings us closer to Christ. It brings us closer to God, I mean. But it's not like this is an issue of salvation, right? Like, you're not gonna die and go to heaven, and there's gonna be a test put in front of you, and the first question is, how old is the earth? And if you answer wrong, whoops, sorry, you failed. You're not getting into heaven, right? Like, that's not, like, you're not, just because you believe the earth is 10,000 years old or 1 billion years old, doesn't mean you're gonna get into heaven or not. It's productive to talk about it. It's really productive to talk about these kind of things, and it's interesting conversation too. Well, at least to me, right? I mean, yeah, go ahead and ask it real quick. We can't get too off track, because we do have a lot of stuff to talk about with Genesis 5, but you can ask it. We just can't get too off track. I mean, what do you mean by that? I mean, his name was Joshua. Yeshua, how they pronounced it. Like, that's not a debate. Like, his name was actually historically Jesus, or his name historically was Joshua. They pronounced it Yeshua, but they pronounced it Yeshua, but it was but the name is Joshua. Like, that historically is actually his name. Oh, well, I think that's ridiculous, if I'm being frank. Yeah, no, I think that's a little bit ridiculous. Well, that's like saying we don't call God Yahweh, right? So God can't hear me because I don't refer to him as Yahweh? That's ridiculous, right? Like, that's definitely not the case. Was it Pentecostal people who told you that? Not to offend any Pentecostals. You guys are still my brothers and sisters in Christ, but was it a Pentecostal who told you that? No, I have a lot of good Pentecostal friends, so I'm not actually dissing them. But that does sound like something a Navy would come from that kind of strain of. I didn't believe the stance, but I didn't think about Yahweh. YouTube video. Yeah, no, like, Exactly. And like, well, then it comes into question, right? So then here's another question, right? What's the proper name for God? Right? Okay, that may sound ridiculous, right? But hear me out. There are like 4 or 5 different names used for God throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. There's El, which is Hebrew for God. There's Elohim. There's Yahweh, and I think there's 1 or 2 others that I don't remember off the top of my head, right? So are you telling me that God will only be listened to if you call him by one of those specifically, and you have to guess which one it is? I don't know. I don't think I would believe that. Just saying. Like, even the people in the Old Testament had multiple words to refer to God. Oh, and actually, here, you know what? I've got biblical proof to tell you that that's not the case, right? So in Genesis, Exodus, and the rest of the Pentateuch, right? The people referred to God as El, Elohim, and Yahweh, right? So objectively, it would have to be one of those, right? So like whenever God appears to Moses in the burning bush, he says his name is Yahweh. Hagar, whenever Hagar runs from Abraham and Sarah with her child into the wilderness, she encounters God. And she calls God something that nobody else in the Old Testament calls him. But God still, even though Hagar calls God something else that nobody else called him in the Old Testament, God still talked back with her. God still conversed with her. Not necessarily, no. Not necessarily. So, whenever you get into the names for God, it's really complicated. Because different people referred to him as different things. And part of that could be to do with language barriers. Part of that could be out of respect. Part of that could be out of position. There's like different things that can kind of come up in that conversation, right? Like some people didn't think that they were worthy to use the proper name for God, so they used the other name Elohim, right? But there were other people who it's just all over the place, right? Like people in different languages call God different things too. Like the English is God, right? But there's no other language which calls him God. That's specifically an English thing. They have their own names for him. Yeah, absolutely. But what was I gonna say? Man, I can't get a good gun. This sucks. Oh yeah, so some theories, right? So one theory is that, oh my gosh, this is stupid. One theory about the old ages before the flood is that so Adam and Eve were immortal, right? They couldn't die while they were in the garden. The idea that some people hold is that those people truly did live to be that old, and it just took a little bit of time for the immortality to wear off, right? So that's why people live to be so old, is because the immortality from Adam and Eve just took a little bit of time to wear off from humans, right? That's one theory. I mean, I'd say they probably wouldn't have been able to die. I don't see why they would have died, right? Like, Eden was heaven before heaven existed, right? It's where you live with God forever. So I don't see why humans would have died before the fall. Well, yes. Whenever it says that they will die from eating the fruit, that's a spiritual death. But that being said, I still don't think they would have died in the garden. Like, why would they have, right? They were perfect. There was no pain yet or anything like that. So that's how I would argue that, at least. Well, no, yeah. So I am responding to your comment, right? So whenever they ate of the fruit and it said that they would die if they ate of it, that is a spiritual death. You're right about that. Like, whenever it says, like, you will surely die from eating the fruit, that's a spiritual death. But I still don't think that they would have had any, like, so we know heaven, we're gonna have perfect bodies again that don't die, they don't feel pain, any of that stuff. Like, we would get to live with God eternally. And Eden was just heaven before heaven, right? Like, it was where people could live with God forever with no pain, or sin, or anything. Well, so the reason God had to kick them out of the garden is because God can't be in the same place that sin is, right? Like, God can't be where sin is, essentially, right? Oh, well, Eden's an entirely different conversation that we also had in a different video, or on a different stream. But yeah, the reason that they got kicked out of the garden was because they were, like, they sinned, and God can't be associated with sin, right? It's fine, it's fine. But yeah, but that is a good point, right? So the idea is that Adam and Eve were immortal in the garden, right? Right? So like what we were just talking about. So the conversation wasn't entirely a side conversation. It had merit. And the idea is that after that took place, they essentially, that's why people live so long, is because it took so long for the immortality to wear off. That's one theory, right? Another idea is that it has something to do with the flood, right? So one idea that people hold is that people living so long before the flood has something to do with the flood. There's something that happened. They believe that something happened during the flood that made it so that we could no longer live as long as we did, right? Because those long ages only exist before the flood. So some people believe that it was a result of the flood that the lifespan was decreased. What's the confusion about? Well, grace because we sinned. We need grace because we sinned, right? Well, the angels weren't created in God's image, were they? Like, only we were created in the image of God. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily the right answer, but that is one thing to take into account, right? Like, well, that's definitely one thing to take into account, right? Like, we were created in the image of God. The angels pretty clearly don't seem to be. So I'd say there's maybe that to take into account. But yeah, so what are some other theories, right? So there's the theory that the immortality took a while to wear off. There's the theory that something happened with the flood that made it so that we couldn't live as long anymore. There's the idea that people didn't actually live that long, that it was either misrecorded or they had a different concept of time, right? So let me explain that. So, for example, we know for a fact that their year was not the same as our year, right? The Israelites worked off of a lunar calendar, which is a calendar based on the movement of the, which is a calendar based on the moon, right? Whereas, whenever the Roman Empire came around, we transitioned to a solar calendar. So we know for a fact that their years were not the same as our years. So that's one thing to take into account. But there's also the idea that maybe their tracking of time was different than our tracking of time in general, right? Like maybe their year wasn't the same as what we consider a year. In the same way that we don't, like, their currency, they didn't have dollars and pounds and nickels and quarters and stuff like that. They have gold and silver and they bartered, right? So that is different, you know? So there's the possibility that their records were different than ours, and we just don't know what their records meant, which is a very likely possibility as well. Well, it's always been explained to me the angels didn't get grace because they weren't in the presence of temptation and they had no reason to sin because God's right there. That stance would hold true in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we were in the presence of God whenever we sinned. Well, that's another theory, right? There's a lot of theories for this one. That's another theory. The theory that God didn't want people living as long because of how wicked we were, right? That's another interesting theory. But yeah, no, I don't like that first theory, the one you just put in there, because we also were in the presence of God whenever we sinned. So that doesn't... How did I just die? Excuse me? Yeah, no, that doesn't track. That theory definitely doesn't track. But that's an idea. I'm gonna have to try and mess with Discord again. Let me do this. Let me just restart Discord. Maybe Discord is being stupid again. I mean, I have said how many times that I really hate Discord, right? I swear, if I restart Discord and it starts working immediately, I'm gonna be really upset. I'm gonna be really upset if Discord starts working immediately as soon as I restart it. Oh no, it's not. Or wait, no, he's not in here, never mind.
Logan?
Oh, yep. There we go.
Hey, so
Literally all I had to do was restart Discord. I hate Discord. If I've never said that before, I really don't like Discord.
there is another theory-ish. I don't know if it's a theory, it's just kind of what I've thought.
What's up?
Is if you take a photocopy of something, and then take a photocopy of the photocopy, and then take a photocopy of the photocopy, and then take a photocopy of that photocopy, and keep doing that over and over and over, it changes. And it gets lesser quality. And same thing, same principle, I guess, would be like with genetics.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
exactly.
Copies and copies and copies, then it's not as good as it originally was. Because I think overall people used to be shorter and different things, and like the oxygen density in the atmosphere has changed, and so many other things have changed that we've adapted to over time. Who knows what all has changed?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of theories, right? Like, did people really... Well, first of all, there's the question of did people actually truly live that long or not? right? And then the question is, if they did truly live that long, what's the reason for that, right? And those are both really interesting questions to try and figure out, right?
It's interesting for sure.
But by that logic, lifespan plummeted in the last 300 to 400 years, and now it's been up more than it was. Well, then that point would be modern medicine, right? Like, modern medicine definitely plays a factor, right? Oh, that's awesome. I love the fact that that just popped up on my screen. Why was that even allowed on Xbox? Anyways. There was just, yeah, not a big deal. Just something that should not have popped up. That I don't know why Xbox would allow. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. I don't want to bring attention to it. So essentially, gosh, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Yeah, that should not have been a thing. Oh well. Oh no, I agree. That one is pretty bad. But yeah, no, I mean, so modern medicine definitely plays a factor in that, right? Like, we have increased how long we can live due to modern medicine, right? Like, that's just a fact, right? Like, we know that to be the case. Which is crazy to think, that we've drastically increased lifespans by that much. Why did they not die by that? Gosh darn it. Am I really gonna fail this challenge by like 2 guns again? Oh man. It's better qualified to practice healthcare than a wicked. What does that mean? I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea what that means. Maybe I'm just uncultured. That's a good possibility. A very good one, actually. They're the early medical women that people called witches, but they used to use herbs to heal. Well, I mean, yeah, I would definitely say that they are more qualified, but I mean, half of that stuff was just crap anyways, so that's something to take into account. Not all of it was crap, you know, they did have some things that worked, but whiskey to soup. Yeah, exactly. Like, just the past 100 years of medicine is like exponentially better than medicine throughout the entire rest of human history. Like, the entire rest of human history was like strange guesses as to what was best until very recently, whenever it was like actual, oh wait, we actually know what works and doesn't work. Well, sometimes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is bad. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, well, let's add this. Hap this. Man, so freaking close. Hopefully I can get this challenge done. That'd be nice. But yeah, modern medicine is truly a miracle. Like, truly, truly, truly reversing, well, not reversing aging, but increasing our lifespans by long periods of time, which is incredible. Well, so here's something interesting, right? So there's still theories. Can we talk about how Adam and Eve have normal names? And it's not. Well, so none of those names are. Those are all English renditions of the Hebrew. Like, none of those are what the actual Hebrew names were. Right? So the reason for that is the same reason. So, like, think of it like a foreign exchange student, right? Right? So whenever you get a foreign exchange student from, I'll actually give an example. We had a foreign exchange student who came from South Korea to my school. His name, well, actually, maybe I shouldn't say his name. I'll just say his first name. It was Hunbin, right? He was given an English name, which was Daniel, and that was so that people could refer to him in his native language, right? Yeah, exactly. So they're English. I mean, some of them are very similar to the original language, right? But they're all like English renditions on, and that's why we call Jesus Jesus. It's the English rendition of Yeshua because it's easier for us to say. It's not that it's bad or misleading, it's just it helps us to be able to refer to them, right? Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll be able to say that soon. I've got to take Hebrew in a semester or two, so I will be able to say it soon enough. Not yet, though. So anyways, that does bring in a discussion, right? That churches will have to start having. And some churches are already having this conversation, right? Because there's this theory in science that we can overcome aging, right? And there's TV shows that are being written about this now. There's scientists that are genuinely looking into this and trying to do it. And given its theory, but let's say, I mean, we can overcome aging up to 120 years. Exactly. So we're slightly overcoming aging. But the idea that some scientists have is that we can completely. So there's two ideas, right? There's the first one that we can reverse aging in our normal bodies, which isn't a very popular one. The more popular one that scientists are really looking at and trying to do is essentially taking our consciousness and essentially putting it in a new body, right? The idea is if we can't overcome physical aging, we can at least make sure that our consciences never die by transferring them from one body to another. Which sounds a lot more feasible, and that's why a lot of scientists are pursuing it, right? We then, as Christians, have to look at that, and we have to say, what would our response be to that, right? Like, let's say next year, they solve that, right? Let's say next year, scientists come up with a solution where we can take our consciousness and just put it in a new body, right? How would we respond to that? Oh, no, exactly. That's the question, right? How would we respond to that? Like, I'm not saying it's possible. I'm not saying that it's possible that we would be able to do that, right? I don't think it would be. But let's say it was. Because there's a lot of scientists out there who say that it is. Or it will be. What would our response be to that? And Christians would have to come up with a response for that. If he did, he'd created that path already. Well, so, no, the argument then would be, right? So here's the argument then, right? You could use the exact same argument for modern medicine, right? You could use the exact same argument for modern medicine. You could say, God didn't want us to have modern medicine. He didn't want us to extend our lives. Whenever we die, we die. Right? You could use that exact same argument for modern medicine, which I'd argue is not a good argument. I would say that if you're fighting against modern medicine, then there's some kind of problem with your theology, is what I would say. Exactly. So it's a tough question, right? It's a tough question. I'm not saying we would get there, but if we did, you know, it's something we have to think about. I'ma just die when I die. I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think I would say the same. I don't think I would want to have my brain uploaded into a new body. Right? I mean, ethically speaking, I think there's a lot of issues with that. And that's the question. There's a lot of ethical questions that come in there that we as Christians would have to consider. And I mean, from my knowledge right now, I would argue it's not an ethical solution for Christians. What's up? What do you notice? Never mind, I misread. Oh, okay, I gotcha. Hang on a second. Let me do something here real quick. Sweet. Alright. Trying to think if there's anything else. Enoch lived 365 years and said he lived faithfully with God 300 years after Methuselah was born. Okay, I gotcha. Ooh, there we go, crossbow, baby. We got the crossbow, baby. That's what I'm talking about. What a banger gun. What a banger gun. So he didn't for 65 years. That's an interesting thing to think about. That is definitely an interesting thing to think about. Ah, I wasted a shot. Gosh darn it. I didn't think that was the last one. Gosh darn it. Oh well. I wonder what guns I'm still missing. Noah was pretty old in the flood. Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head, but he was pretty old. He was a couple hundred years old at least. But honestly, I'm not sure the exact number off the top of my head. But that's something we can go over next week when we talk about the flood, so that'll be interesting. That will definitely be something we go over next week in the flood. Lamech and Noah were both in the boat. Shem, Ham, and Japheth weren't born yet. No, wait. That's not true. No, that's not true. Because it mentions that the people who went on the ark when the flood started was Noah, his wife, his sons, and their 3 wives. So there was 8 people on the ark. It was Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their 3 wives were the 8 people who made it onto the boat. So that's not true. Dang. No, yeah, no, he had 3 sons. He had Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Dang, that was really close. That sucks. Oh, I did not reset the death counter. There we go, all better now. All better now. Yeah, Lamech was, yeah, I just double checked it here. Lamech was Noah's dad, was how it worked. Lamech was Noah's father. I don't think so. No, after Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Yeah, I think Noah was only a couple hundred years old when he went on the ark. I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure he's only a couple hundred years old. Well, how do we know Lamech died in the flood? I don't think that... Oh, wait, I see what you're saying, actually. Hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'm tripping. Is that a contradiction? Oh, no, it's not a contradiction. Noah was 600 years old when the floodwaters came on the earth. So Noah was 600 whenever the flood hit. I'm gonna be honest, we probably shouldn't be talking about this stuff tonight. Just if I'm being honest. We probably should save this stuff for next week. I don't want to talk about it now and then not be able to talk about it next week. Not to shut it down. But I'd rather not talk about it now. I'd rather save it. That is interesting though, because Lamech would have died just before the flood came. Well, obviously. No, I'm kidding. It's just, I don't want to, well, because here's the exact reason, right? Because there's no, like, I don't want to talk about this stuff twice, right? I mean, we're already doing it a lot today. Like, we already talked about the creation stuff a different time, right? And now we're now we're kind of, I don't want to say wasting, but like this Bible study is supposed to be dedicated to Genesis 5, right? So it should stay on Genesis 5. So that's what I'd rather keep today on Genesis 5, keep the creation stuff whenever creation happened, and keep that stuff for whenever we talk about that. Oh, there's a ton of stuff that happens in Genesis 5. That's what I'm saying. We talk about, like, Enoch is one of the most fascinating people ever. Methuselah is one of the most fascinating people ever, and this is the only chapter that mentions both of them. And this is the only chapter that mentions people living over 600 years old. Like, this chapter mentions people living to be thousands of years old. Well, not thousands, but almost 1,000 years old, right? Which is crazy. Is that not cool? Are you not pleased? He's the oldest person who ever lived. How is that not cool? I can't believe you're not impressed by the oldest guy who ever lived. That's pretty impressive. I don't know. Does it matter? I don't care. He lived to be the oldest person who ever lived. Well, then what about all the kings of Israel who did absolutely nothing for their entire lives? Are they not important? They were kings of Israel. That's not a good argument. Because if you're going by that logic, then there has not been a single person who has ever lived who's been worth talking about. If we're talking about a works-based religion. Because you're getting into works-based territory there, talking about what you did and didn't do with your life, and that's what makes you important. That's a works-based theology there. No, but you get my point, right? Doesn't matter what people did in life. They're no less important in God's eyes. We're no less important in God's eyes, whether we did stuff with our life or not. So are you saying that the guy in the room right next to me, who's never going to be remembered by history, didn't follow God's will, and that we shouldn't remember him? Oh, no, that's wrong. You and Paul are equals. We're all equal in the eyes of God, every single one of us. Not to call you straight up wrong, but you kind of are. Every single one of us is equal in the eyes of God. That's the point. And what about all the missionaries who did more work than 90% of the people in the Bible and won't be remembered? I'm gonna be honest, I don't like your logic. Because let's be honest, 90% of the people, well, not 90%, actually, yeah, 90%. 90% of the people in the Bible did basically nothing with their lives. And yet we remember them and talk about them all the time. What about all the missionaries who spent 60, 80 years of their life being faithful to God that we will never talk about because they're not in the Bible? See, I don't like that argument. I mean, we can agree to disagree, but I don't like the argument of saying some people's lives have more value than others. I don't like it. I think it's a little bit absurd. Like, there's no reason for us to call one person lesser or more than anybody else. We're all equal in the eyes of God. That's what makes the gospel so beautiful. You know? I don't know, man. I don't think you're gonna convince me. I'm gonna be honest. Methuselah being the oldest person to ever live is pretty cool. I don't think you're gonna change my mind on that. Dude, how do you think your life doesn't hold the same value as Paul? I'm gonna be honest, if you're calling yourself a Christian, how do you not believe that your life holds the same value? It's not so much I'm like he was. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're just gonna have to stop because I don't think we're gonna agree on this. I think everybody holds the same value, regardless of, like, anything.
Teleporter. Could be useful if we can link them up. I need to make my way back to the
Yeah, we're just gonna have to
mainframe.
agree to disagree. I'd rather just talk about something else, to be honest. So Zev, what are you doing with your week? You got any interesting plans this week? So what are you doing this week, Zev? Yes, I'm purposely ignoring that. I want to move on. I mean, we've talked about Genesis 5 pretty thoroughly, I'd say. I mean, you don't seem to think there's too much else to talk about there, so we can save the rest for next week. Oh no, no. I didn't take that as arguing. If that's what you're saying, I wasn't taking that as arguing. I just saw the conversation wasn't going anywhere, so I just didn't want to talk about it anymore. Okay. I mean, that's fun. What other weekend plans you got, other than going to the new location on Sunday? Yeah, no, I didn't see it as arguing. I just didn't see the conversation really going anywhere. Anything interesting you got planned that we can hear about? There we go. Look at that. Beautiful. There we go. There's the other 25 points I've been missing. That's pretty much it. I have prayer on Saturday and work. That's it. Doing a new small group on Friday, and I'm meeting a buddy for the college service I go to every Thursday. I mean, that's quite a bit. That's quite a bit of cool stuff, man. I wouldn't say that's nothing. Oh, why are you scared? Just go for it, man. Why not? Why not, man? Just go for it. Yeah, I'd just say go for it, man. Honestly, I'd just be straight up. I would just tell him that beforehand. Like, literally say those exact words to him. Yeah, exactly. Just tell him beforehand, like, I think you guys are awesome and I'd like to get to know you guys more, but I need to preface this beforehand. And they'll understand. Just tell them you're prone to that. Yeah. Just say, like, I mean, 100% I would say that. Like, not in that exact wording, but yeah. Just tell them, like, I really want to get to know you guys, but if you guys are cool with that, then I'd like to get to know you guys more. Okay, so that was what I was gonna say next, is that you can't do that. Like, it's fine with me, whatever, I'm not phased, but if you do that to him, you're gonna drive him away. Especially if you don't tell him ahead of time, you're gonna drive him away if you make any kind of comments like that. 100%. So you cannot say anything like that whenever you are around him, ever. Ever, ever. And on top of that, you should tell them, I want to get to know you guys, but this is something you should know about me. But yeah, you would not be able to do that with them. No chance. No chance that would go over well. Yeah, no, I gotcha. I was just clarifying. Yeah, we're both on the same page. Yeah, we're both on the same page. There we go. Yeah, no, I gotcha, man. Yeah, I would just be very careful about that. I mean, I know we're on the same page about that, but still. But yeah, I honestly would just straight up tell both of them beforehand, like, I want to get to know you guys better. This is something you should know about me. And just like say exactly what you said to me, like, this is not why I'm talking to you guys, but I would like you to know this about me, right? Yeah, I gotcha. Oh, well then just tell him. Just tell him specifically, like, I want to get to know you guys, but this is something you should know about me. You can tell her as well. You know, I just want to be transparent with you guys, because being transparent is always the best option. Being transparent is always the best option, man. Always the best option. Yeah, that's what I would say, honestly. I mean, I'd leave that up to your discretion. Like, I don't know if you have to say that specifically, but you should bring up, like, the idea in general, right? If that makes any sense. Well, so to answer your question, yes, but that is a different circumstance. I wouldn't use that exact wording, but I've grown to become confident enough in myself that if I find somebody that I want to talk to, I'm going to make my intentions clear with them right off the bat. I don't want to like, you know, beat around the bush at all. I'm just gonna straight up tell somebody like, hey, I don't know, something along the lines of, I mean, obviously I wouldn't use this exact wording, it would depend on the situation, but I'd just straight up say something along the lines of like, hey, I saw you here, think you're pretty like, you know, I'd like to take you out sometime, make some kind of comment about girls, something like that. I mean, obviously this is a different case because you're not looking to ask this person out, but in the example that I'm using where I would be wanting to ask the person out, yes, I would. Yeah, exactly. So it's a different analogy because it's for a different circumstance. Ooh, sorry, I hit the mic again. My bad, I'm still not used to this. I literally just set up the mic this way. So I might bring it up next week. That's fair. That's honestly a fair way to do that, I think. Yeah, I'd say that's a fair way of doing that, to be honest. Maybe I shouldn't have traded that out so quickly. Maybe I should have waited a little bit. But yeah, I would just set that as your goal before you go out with this couple, right? I would make it my goal to bring this up, right? And however you want to approach it, whatever you think is the best way, right? Okay, so like what you're talking to me about. Yeah, no, I mean that would be a great way to bring it up, I think. Like if you used that as the segue to bring it up with him, I'd say that's a really good way of doing that. Because then it's understandable, right? It's not ambiguous. It's like I understand this and this and this. I want you to know this, this, and this. There's no ambiguity there. There's no questions. There's like everything is made clear from that discussion. What your intentions are, what you're looking for, how you think about it. Like everything would be put out right there, front and center. No ambiguity, right? Yeah, and there's a chance that this person you're talking to will say the exact same thing, right? Like, maybe they already know too, by some chance, right? That's possible. That's very possible. But also, like, it's not something to be ashamed of. Like, we're the community. We're the community of God. We're the people of God. We're meant to be here to support each other through anything, right? Like, we're not here to... Like, we were talking about this at the revival, right? Like, this was a great message that was told at the revival, right? And essentially the idea is that whenever... This was actually just this morning, I think, right? And they used the parable of the prodigal son, right? And the idea is that we don't like to come to our family and our friends and God about our sin because we feel shame about it. But the reality is whenever we come to God with our sin, he celebrates, right? Like, the prodigal son was full of sin, and all he didn't do anything. All he did was turn back to God, and he said, look, I'm sorry. I want to be back with you again, blah, 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 right? And God rejoiced, and all of heaven rejoiced, right? Like, everyone who was there rejoiced that this person came back, and they talked about it, right? It wasn't something to be shameful about, and that's like how we're supposed to model that in the community of Christ, right? The idea is that we model that exact same thing. Whenever somebody comes to us with their sin and their problems, we don't shame them like the world would. We act as God would, and we celebrate truth coming to us with our problems and not hiding them and running away, but confronting them head on and telling us about them, right? Like, we need to be supportive and model the house of God in these kind of situations, right? Gosh darn it. Yeah, no, I've gotcha. Yeah, and that's something to take into account as well. That's definitely something to take into account as well. Well, so here's the point. The Bible just makes it clear that any kind of sexual immorality is wrong. Like, that's what makes it interesting and unique, right? It doesn't point out specific forms of sexual immorality and talk about why they're bad. What it does is it models the one form of sexual relation that is okay and says that all the other ones are wrong, right? So it tells us that it shows us the model, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't fit into that model, you're committing sexual immorality, right? And that's what makes it good. That's what makes it beautiful, right? Like, it's not that it's pointing out specific ones and saying why they're bad and all this other garbage. It's like, no, this is the model, and that's what you strive for, right? Huh? Well, that's what I'm saying, right? It's treated the same way. That's the point. There's no difference. In the same way that all sin is equally bad, all forms of sexual immorality are bad, right? Yeah, but I don't think that's any different. Like, that's the point that I'm trying to make, right? Like, there's no difference between that story and any other one. The point stays the same either way. That's what I'm trying to say. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, no, I guess I'm following. Guns, and this will be 6. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like to believe a lot of those theories. if I'm being honest. I've been pretty turned off by those theories for a while now, because a lot of them just don't really make any sense to me. Like, maybe there's one out there that is legitimate, but I read about them all the time, and then I look into them, and it's just ridiculous, right? So one of them was David, right? So there's these people out there who 100% believe that David was gay. And apparently they've never read the Bible, because David had multiple wives, right? And even if you consider that a political thing, how do you get past the fact that he lusted after Bathsheba on the rooftop? Right? And like, every theory that I've read falls into something like that, where it's like, oh, they clearly just took one piece of the Bible out of context and didn't read anything else. Well, yeah, and I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not saying it's impossible that Paul was. I'm just saying I've been pretty turned off by those theories for a while. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying I am not a fan. And it's not because I'm against it or jaded against it for any reason. It's just simply because every other time I've heard a theory like that, it's been proven to be ridiculous if you actually look into it. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying it's impossible that Paul was. I'm just saying every other time I've researched as a quote-unquote gay Bible character, it's just not true. So, I don't know. It's not impossible. I'm just saying I've looked into too many of those to look into any more of them, if that makes sense. Oh wait, I don't think I counted that gun, did I? 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I did not count that gun. Let's not get off track here. I'm reading an article about Paul and it's really confusing. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? Every time I read them, they're either nonsensical or they're just wrong, right? Like the one about David is just straight up wrong. And like there's other ones that I've read that are just way too confusing and don't seem to make any sense. And that's like every single one of those articles that I've read. Yeah, exactly. That's why I don't like those conversations. That's exactly why I don't like them, because they always never make sense. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Maybe I should have not ended that round. Maybe I should have waited to pack punch another gun. But oh well, it doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter all that much in the end. And there they are. There they are. Oh gosh, it's already round 20, I didn't realize. Yeah, I've just been talking about all this stuff. I haven't even really been paying attention to the game at all. Probably should be, so I don't end this game like I did the last one on accident. That'd be bad. And they're making valid arguments that the foundations of drugs don't matter. The Bible teaches us clearly. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Cole, how long have you been here again? Or did you just come back? Yeah, man, were you here for a little while? I feel bad. We weren't talking to you. Oh, well. Just came back. Oh, okay, dude. Well, hey, man. Have a good night. Hopefully the homework and everything went well. I'm glad to see you two are feeling better again. Yeah, I'm very glad to see that you two are feeling better again, man. Have a good night. This article makes me mad, so I'm not reading it anymore. Exactly! That's exactly what I was trying to say, right? Like, I'm not saying it's impossible that any of those theories are true. I'm just saying they make me mad whenever I read them, and I don't want to read them anymore. So I don't. Like, I just straight up do not want to read them anymore because they just make me mad whenever I read them. You know what I mean? I mean, you do know what I mean now because you're living it as well. Alright, one more this round, and then we'll go on to the next round. There we go. Gosh darn, dude, that's not good. It's making the stance about how all arguments are invalid because it's just an act of rebellion from God. People aren't just innately this way. Yeah, no, like, it's ridiculous. It's just... A lot of people do that, though. They just take a couple verses out of context and then make them fit their political agenda or whatever agenda they like, you know? That's what people do. Yeah, you know? It's just weird, man. It's just weird. It's just really odd. Alright, let's, I think this is the last wall gun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Wait. Huh? Am I tripping? Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Maybe I shouldn't be training out here. Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to approach that, right? Especially for your situation, I think that's a really good way to approach that. I'm glad that you, like, add God into that discernment process, right? Like, I think that's really important. Obviously, as you would know. As you would already know. Man, this guy really needs some help. Good thing I can hack a bunch of shit. Well, I mean, if that's the reason you're going into it, I wouldn't want to do it then, right? And maybe that's just me talking and not the Bible or anything like that, but I don't want to get into a relationship if I'm not 100% that, right? Like, if I'm not 100% about the person, I don't want to lead them on, I don't want to lead myself on, I don't want to make things too hard, and maybe that's just myself talking, right? Like, that could just be... Yeah. I wouldn't want to have to power through any relationship, if that makes sense. You know? See what I'm saying? But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here in a second. We've been streaming for a while, and I'm gonna be honest, my throat's starting to really hurt. I mean, I guess, but I don't know. Maybe I just can't really respond to the issue specifically. Like, maybe that's just not my place to speak. I don't know. Well, it's because I have to talk literally 16 hours a day non-stop, including singing and shouting and talking over other people and coming to the stream. Well, for worship, I have chapel 3 times a week and I go to church, so 4 times a week I'm singing. And whenever I'm at my job, it's a loud environment, so I have to talk over people. And this revival's been going on, so I have to add that in. That's about 6 hours of singing every day. And then I come here and I stream for about 3 to 4 hours a night. And then I talk with my friends and my family. I talk over the phone and all this stuff. Like, I talk all the time, like non-stop. It's kind of painful. I think the stream is what set it over the edge, because my throat used to be fine before I started streaming, and now ever since I started streaming, it's been real bad again. But yeah. I don't know. That's just how it falls. Well, any last questions about Genesis 5 before I end it? Because I mean, I think we went over everything with Genesis 5, and my throat's really hurting, so we've also been streaming for 3.5 hours, so that's been a decent amount of time. So if there's not any other questions about Genesis 5, I think I'll just call it. Actually, let me do this real quick. Okay, well, sweet. I'm good with that then. Genesis 5 was good. I'll upload this to YouTube for all the people who want to watch it there afterwards. Apparently those have been getting a couple views, so I'll put it up there. And then Genesis 6 next week on Wednesday. Tuesday we'll play something. I'm not sure what we'll play. And I'm not sure about this weekend because I might be working at the Revival for quite a bit of this weekend. So I don't think I'll be streaming. Well, I don't know if I'll say that. I really would like to stream a little bit more this week. I'm just not sure the feasibility of it with the Revival. So we'll try and work it in. We'll just see like what the best course of action is, I guess. No, I'll have an update for the devotionals soon. I've been praying a lot about that and thinking about it, and if you want the short update, I've been praying about it, and I don't think it's what God wants me to be doing. Yeah. I mean, I'd like to be doing them, but I've prayed about it and I've thought about it. And what it comes down to is, I just don't think God wants me to be doing them right now. I have to pick up more of the slack for the Twitch channel, which takes up a lot more time. And also just school and the Revival and work, and then putting more time into the streaming and the gym and everything. I don't have the time. Well, that was what started it. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that comment. But yeah, I mean, I'll pick up the videos at some point in the future. Just not right now. It's just not the right time for it. Because I was feeling really overwhelmed as is, and I was praying with God about it, especially recently because I've had to pick up so much more of the slack with the Twitch channel. And I've just had so little time, and the devotionals just take up so much time every week, so I was praying about it, and I think God was kind of just telling me, like, you don't have to do it every week, you know, take a break here, you know, like, you don't have to be doing this every single week. I'm proud of what you have done with it, and I'll be glad whenever you have time to come back to it, but if you don't have the time right now, that's fine. And I'll still be uploading other things to it, right? Like, I'm gonna try and upload clips from these Twitches as YouTube Shorts. I'm planning on making a video, like, once the revival across the street is over, which, by the way, the revival has been going on for 7 24-hour days straight as of today. As of today at 12, 7 days, 7 24-hour days straight of worship. Thousands of people, multiple buildings, still going on. Still going on. It's incredible. So once it's over, once the revival's over, I'm planning on making a short little video as a recap of it so that people who weren't able to come, they can know how it started, like kind of like a little documentary type thing, right? Like I want to make a video that's essentially, you know, what happened? Like, what are the actual things that happened? How did it start? What did it look like? Like, what did each of the different nights entail? What is some of the kind of stuff that was said during it? What was my experience with it? And just kind of like overall recap it, essentially, in video form, make it kind of documentary. I've got some B-roll footage that I've been trying to get the last couple days to put in the background of it. So I'll be making that video at some point. Like I said, I'm going to be uploading Twitch clips to the YouTube as well. So it's not that I'm going to be completely abandoning the YouTube, but the sermons are going to be stopping for a little bit. But yeah, no, I appreciate you too, man. You've really been a big help. I know today was kind of a slow day. We didn't really have too many people show up, but I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate you modding and everything. You make good discussion and everything. And, you know, it was a good chat. Exactly. It was a really good chat. I appreciate you being here and helping out with everything. And, you know, you stuck around today even though it was just the two of us for 90% of it. So I really appreciate that. I think there's a good balance, right? Like, I think I've really thought about it and prayed about it, and ideally where I want to get to this channel to be, I want to get this channel to a spot where there's different nights for different people, right? So Wednesday nights, I ideally want to have as many of the boys here in the Discord chatting about this stuff. You know, there's as many voices, different perspectives talking in the Discord. There's people talking in the chat, and it's like completely Bible centered, right? Like, I want to have those as Wednesday nights. I also want to have some nights where it's, so there's 3 types of nights that I want, right? I want to have those nights on Wednesday nights. I want to have completely Bible-centered, completely God-centered nights that is just talking about the Bible, as many different perspectives as possible included in that. The second type of night that I want is getting as many people as possible into the Discord chat, but it's not centered on God. And essentially, it's just us having a good time, playing games, drawing people into the channel, right? And I'm not saying that because I want to take God out of these discussions. I'm saying that because there's a lot of people who came to this channel because they wanted to see us have a good time and play games, who weren't Christians, right? There's a lot of people who came to this channel not because it was a Christian channel, but because we were putting out interesting content of us just playing games, right? And they stuck around because of that. And now those same people know that we do these Bible study nights, and they can come to those, right? You know, like, it opens up. So those nights, I want it to be centered on us having a good time and playing games, and not have God as the center of the discussion, because we can bring in people who don't want to talk about God, who just want to come in into a stream and have a good time, play some games, and bring them into the family so that one day later on they might be, you know, touched by some of the things we say, right? Like, there's tons of examples of people that come to our chat and talk to us that aren't Christians, that come around just for the gameplay, right? But we know that we do these Bible streams, and maybe they'll show up to one of them one day. But they wouldn't have come to this stream if it was Bible-centered every single day, right? So that's the second type of stream nights I want to have. I want to have stream nights, and that's ideally what I want to do Tuesday nights, right? So Tuesday nights, I want it to be just games with the boys having a good time. That's it, right? Draw people into the channel, play games, have a good time. Wednesday nights, I want to be completely God-centered. Completely God-centered, just Bible study. That's the entire focus. And then the third type of night I want to have is various sporadically, not on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, just whenever I find the time to stream. It's just me, none of the other Discord people, just me, so that I can have better one-on-one conversation with the chat, right? Because there's some people who don't want to stay around if there's a bunch of people talking in the Discord. They just want to come by and, you know, chat with me and whoever else, right? So those are the three types of nights that I want to have. I want to have Wednesday nights completely God-centered, as many people in the Discord as possible. Tuesday nights, just having a fun time playing games, as many people as possible. And then other nights where it's just me chatting with you guys, essentially. That's the goal that I want to get moving forward. Hopefully. Yeah, that's true. I think the people who come in my Discord are good about, like, caring about you guys. But at the same time, it's different whenever it's just me, right? Like, I'm better able to attend to you guys than if there were more of us. So ideally, that's where we'll get. But yeah, man, Zev, I appreciate you stopping by and everything. Oh, no, you don't have to be sorry. Dude, you do so much for this channel, you have no idea. Like, you just being here and chatting and, helping out and everything means a ton. But that is something I wanted to bring up with you, right? I hate to ask this of you, because I know this is what you want from this channel, but I do want to make an effort to... Let me figure out how to word this. On Tuesday nights, whenever we're just playing games with the boys, it's not that I don't want God to come up in conversation. If somebody in chat brings it up, I'm fine to talk about it for a little bit, but I'm not going to bring it up. I'm hoping that a lot of people in the Discord don't bring it up, and I would maybe ask the same of you as well, which I know is hard to ask, right? But knowing... Well, yeah, I mean, I just want to explain though, right? So, knowing me, and knowing you, and knowing my friends, we could make every stream just about God, right? Like, we could do that, and I would gladly do that. I would make every chat just about God. I know you would make every chat just about God. I know my friends would do the exact same thing. So if we just left ourselves up to our own devices, I know that's what we would do. But that being said, I do want to make room for those streams to bring people into the channel who might not necessarily want to talk about God. So that's why I'm asking that. And I know that's a hard ask, because I don't want to say, like, I'm not saying that God can't be brought up in discussion those days. Like, if somebody in chat talks about it, like, let's say, for example, somebody new comes to chat and they say, God's gamers, are you guys Christian? And it's like, oh yeah, well, absolutely, are you? And then if they start talking about their faith, that's one thing. But I want to make a conscious effort on our part, running the channel, to not bring up God on those days. And I know that's hard. That's a hard ask. And I even hate that I'm saying that, right? I don't like that, right? I want to make this whole channel just about God. But logistics speaking, like, I could look at my list of followers right now, And over half of these people wouldn't have come to the channel or stayed if it was just about God every time. But they keep coming back to the channel because, like, they came to the channel because of us playing the games and having a good time, right? Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I want to ask though, Zev, do you like that? Because to me, that's a good idea. Because, I mean, like I was just saying, like, looking at the Discord members, right, all the followers, so many of these people only want to come for that, right? And I'm okay with that. Because of the fact that we've brought them into the channel, we've shown them that we can have a good time and just play games. And we also leave open the chance for them to come and talk about God. And we make, like, we leave that door open, but we don't make that the only thing that we're about, right? I'm saying, I'm clarifying it because I wanted to bring up with you and ask what you think about it too, right?
You just have to remove her.
Because that's my idea, right? But I'm curious what you think. I mean, you are a big part of the channel. You are a moderator. Actually, you are our only... Well, no, you're one of 2 moderators, so... You know. You have a say.
Why did you do it, Mason? Why?
What do you mean by somebody who takes it to a whole different level? I'm curious. I mean, I see the value in what you're trying to do. I just get annoyed on those days because there's someone who takes it to a whole... Yeah, what do you mean by that? I mean...
I know when you're lying.
I'm convinced... Sorry, who? I'm convinced someone is here to cause drama? I don't know. Sorry.
You know why you're here.
I might be missing something. Oh, and I mean, like, there are gonna be those people, right? Like, there's gonna be some people who just show up to cause drama. I mean, that's fine. There's not really much we can do about that.
You can stop all this now.
You know, like, as long as, you know, this message is being spread, right? And nobody's being hurt. That's what matters to me, right? Like, as long as nobody's being hurt and this message is being spread, that's what matters to me, right? That's my thought. But yeah, I mean, if you think it's a good idea too, I say we go with that. I say we go with that moving forward. So that'll be the plan for the Tuesday streams, is to just keep it like that, right? Just keep it face value, playing the games, having a good time. You know, because, like, the way I'm thinking about it, right, is like how you would run a church, right? A good way to bring people into your church is to host events that aren't centered around God, right? So one good one that my church did was a car show, and it was a big event, right? Because, like, everybody where I came from is super into cars. And there was this field behind the church that used to be a baseball field, but it got torn down and all this stuff. And they would host this car show every single year, right? And the amount of people that would come to that car show every year was absurd. Hundreds and hundreds of people, even though this was a really small church. And that was a good chance for people to come and see the type of people that attend that church and see what they were like and what they stood for, without making the conversation and the event strictly about God, right? Like, we invite them to our church for a car show, and the whole event is about cars and meeting with people and having a good time, right? But then as a result of that, people become connected with that church and the people of that church, so that maybe one day they'll come back for a service, right? Something that is dedicated to God. And that's how I'm kind of picturing this, right? Like, we have one day a week where it's completely God-centered, like a sermon message. And then the other nights of the week are more along the lines of getting to know people, bringing people into the channel, and not like in a manipulative way, right? Like, I'm not trying to say that in a manipulative way. I'm not trying to manipulate people into coming to the channel and staying and following and, you know, indoctrinating them in, right? I want to provide a place that is a fun space for people to come and have a good time and chat, right? But at the same time, offer a place where at least once a week we can center and talk about God, right? I don't know if I agree with that, honestly. I mean, I could talk about many times that Paul didn't do that, but just think about Jesus, right? I mean, do you think that... How do I want to word this? Do you think that everything Christ did during his 33... Yes, but do you think he brought up God everywhere he went, in every conversation? Because I don't think he did. I don't even think that the Bible says that. So first of all, I never said it was a hard rule not to. I just said we won't bring it up. But if somebody else does, that's fine. And I think Jesus would have thought the exact same way. I don't think Jesus made a conscious effort to bring up God everywhere he went. But it's not like if somebody approached him, he wasn't going to talk about it. Like, for example, let me give a biblical example. Let me not use extra biblical stuff. Let me use a strict biblical example. What about the wedding he went to at Cana? God was not brought up at any point at that wedding. Jesus solely went to that wedding to just meet people and have a good time. Right? And I'm sure if somebody asked him about that at the wedding, he would have talked about it, but he didn't. He didn't bring it up. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could keep chatting about this for a while, honestly. Like, I could keep going back and forth about this for hours, honestly. But I think I am probably gonna head out. I mean, we can talk about it another time. I would definitely be down to talk about it another time, but my voice is gonna freaking kill me if I don't leave soon. I know I said that like 20 minutes ago and I've stayed. But yeah, I think I've got to call it. I'm really, my voice just really hurts. And we've been streaming for almost 4 hours now anyways, so I think it's probably a good time anyways to... Oh, it's 11:30? I gotta get up at like 6 tomorrow. I didn't realize it was that late. Gosh darn it. That was stupid of me. Oh well. It was a good time. We played some COD Zombies. We, you know, talked about Genesis 5. If there's anybody... Hang on, let me drop this real quick. If there's anybody in the chat right now who missed out and wants to come along next time, the Discord's here. We can notify you of whenever we'd be going live again. Or you could follow. I mean, that would also let you know whenever we'd be going live next. But yeah, if you're just tuning in and you missed out, I apologize. We'll do it again sometime. We'll play games and talk about God and have a good time and stuff, so. But yeah, I think I'm gonna head out for the night. It was a good time. Alright. I'll see you guys. Have a good one.